I was part of the group of people that kept asking for Zelda to get her own adventure. While my vision was closer to being able to wander around Breath of the Wild with a toned down version of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity Zelda, I was happy to settle for another Grezzo-driven top-down adventure. I was looking forward to experiencing this world under a new set of flowing golden locks, but walked away a bit disappointed at how safe Nintendo played it. Let's talk about The Legend of Zelda: Echoes of Wisdom. The adventure begins in an awfully familiar way, venturing through a mysterious underground cave with an endgame version of Link, 2 full lines of hearts, and access to all of the toys. You then face and defeat a mysterious blue villain that I'm sure absolutely none of us yet know the name of, in an effort to save Princess Zelda, who has been missing for a week. Link falls into something called a rift. Zelda decides to don the cloak he left behind and get to the bottom of why all these purple portals are appearing around Hyrule and swallowing villagers whole. She is soon found by Tri, a floating lemon-head looking creature who along with their friends are in charge of maintaining and mending any rifts they come across. Zelda is given the Tri-Staff and access to all of Tri's powers, its main one being Echoes. When you come across a shimmering item, you can copy it and place it in the world infinitely with the press of a button. You can also learn enemy echoes after defeating them. Each item and enemy carries a cost, and the number you can place on the map is dependent on Tri's current power level, which increases and is smartly indicated by the floating triangle trail it leaves behind. So the simpler items and weaker enemies carry a single cost all the way up to powerful enemies like Wiz Robes that cost 5. I also like that some enemies have an extra ability such as hole mills that can dig tunnels for you or strantillas that can make a web for you to climb. The second main ability you have is Bind, which attaches Zelda's movement to an item or even an enemy. This opens up some interesting ways to tackle combat, as I would use it sometimes to make myself a human shield, or use it to limit an enemy's movement so my Echo can defeat them, or just toss them off the side of a cliff myself. A simpler version of Breath of the Wild's cooking mechanic is also here as smoothies. Throughout your adventure, you'll find foods and ingredients you can combine that refill your hearts and give you a temporary buff. While some made sense, such as lightning resistance or higher defense, others felt like they were taken from Breath of the Wild for no reason at all. Like, why would I need a smoothie that increases wall climbing speed in a game that is not open world, where climbing is few and far between? Combat was very hit or miss to me because I wasn't a fan of the idea that my success in a battle was really up to an AI, not me directly. There were times where I struggled with a simple flying enemy because my spear, Moblin Echo just kept missing, and then you're left watching and waiting until it decides to attack again. I quickly discovered that calling out an Echo causes it to immediately attack, so my strategy throughout the game was to target an enemy, send out an Echo, and then immediately echo again in order to maximize damage. I will say it was a treat to encounter a new enemy and swing open my Swiss Army to find the right creature for the job. While Echoes and Bind are useful in combat, their combination shines throughout my favorite part of any Zelda game, the puzzles. Now I have to sit with it for a while, but this game might have some of my favorite temple puzzles in any Zelda game. There were a few put down the controller and just think about this moments, and what more could you ask for from a Zelda game? And here's a free tip for you guys: do not forget about the bind power, because its use regularly slipped my mind. It was a key ability I was missing in a few jams. Some of the puzzles reminded me of my time with Tears of the Kingdom, where I would hobble together a solution with a bunch of items and overcome an impasse in a way I was convinced was not the primary solution conjured up by the devs. And I'm looking forward to seeing how other players tackle these puzzles, because I'm sure there are multiple solutions to a few of them. I felt the temple designs themselves were a little bit lacking, nothing overtly complex in terms of interlocking systems, but that led to minimal backtracking and getting lost, which is always a plus. Still World is a new addition and are the insides of a rift you step into. These are usually filled with platforming challenges alongside enemies, so they make for a nice change of pace. The overworld of this game is similar to previous entries. It always feels like coming home with familiar locations, enemies, and characters. Grezzo translated a lot of the work that they did in The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening and continued this almost Animal Crossing style for this entry. I personally love the art direction for this game. It feels like I'm a kid looking down and playing with a Zelda toy set and moving the figures around this giant field. A lot of the series staples are here, interacting with townsfolk, stumbling across a hidden staircase in the wild, shopping around and picking up some side quests. A few of them revolve around echoes and someone wanting to see a particular creature that they vaguely describe to you, but others are a bit more involved, with one of my favorites being Zelda turning into an investigator to find an echo of a soldier at Hyrule Castle. If you've played any Zelda game, the pace here is as familiar as it gets. You enter into a new region with the primary purpose of removing a threat. In that pursuit, you help them overcome some sort of emotional struggle they've been having, find a temple, find the small keys to get to the big key, and then face the boss waiting behind it. You then pursue the MacGuffins that get you to the big threat, destroying Hyrule. And I'm gonna be honest, this is the first Zelda game in a while where that structure got to me just a bit. And I think it's because I wanted this to be an opportunity for Nintendo to rethink this series a bit through the lens of a new protagonist, and they did not seize that opportunity. It was one of my minor gripes with the game, and one that I don't foresee many having. I think we understand what to expect from a Zelda game, but there was something about interacting with characters that I remembered first meeting in Ocarina of Time over a decade ago that just got to me. One of Nintendo's company mantras is to surprise and delight, and it's hard to be surprised when you feel like you're playing the same game yet again with a few changes. I also think it's due to echoes being the main twist mechanic of this game. It's not as interesting as, say, Link Between Worlds' mural mechanic, because items become obsolete the moment you find a better replacement. So you begin by using beds as stairs, but once you unlock water blocks and make vertical and horizontal tunnels to swim through, it becomes the most efficient way to navigate, to the point where I would rather just have a mechanic that elevates me vertically rather than the freedom to build a makeshift staircase out of random items. The sheer number of echoes you can learn sounds great as a bullet point to sell the game, but its freedom comes at the cost of a more sensible user experience. It suffers from the same problem introduced by Tears of the Kingdom fusibility. I don't want to navigate an entire row of items to get the one thing I want. Between those two games, Nintendo didn't come up with a better solution to this problem. So you hold right on the D-pad to bring up your row of echoes and then navigate through them with the right stick. I'm not sure why enemies and items are listed together. Down on the D-pad doesn't do anything. Why not map enemies there and items on the right? Why not stack similar enemies and items together vertically? So if I want to fire Keys, I would scroll over to find Keys and then up and down to navigate different types. And the echo mechanic also speaks to my main issue with the game. Even though I am now controlling Zelda, this game feels like I'm playing as Link with extra steps. If I see a crack in the wall, I need to navigate to the bombfish, echo it, and then throw it. If I see a faraway switch I need to hit, I must either find an enemy with a projectile to hit it or transform into Link and use his bow and arrow. Maybe it's just me. I think I would rather just have bombs and arrows. And this all speaks to a larger issue with this game. Zelda isn't actually doing anything. You see, Zelda is one of the most badass female characters in our industry, but in this game, she's merely a vessel for someone or something else. The entire concept of echoes and bind are not hers. She has a staff given to her, but she's not doing any of this. Tri is creating echoes. Tri is binding to a rock to move it. Tri and their friends are mending the rifts. Zelda can't actually fight enemies. Tri is creating enemy echoes, and I am standing around waiting for them to save me. She's not given a sword or a shield to defend herself. If I want to get my hands dirty, I can't. I have to transform into Link in order to do that. My anticipation for this game was to be able to finally play as a character who is usually just kidnapped and waiting for the hero to save her. This was an opportunity from Nintendo to create a game where Zelda could save herself, but even in the game she stars in, she can't. We all know the magic Zelda is capable of. Her use of a sword is not a completely foreign imagination. Nintendo could have used this game as a way for us to experience Hyrule from a new perspective, but it doesn't feel like Zelda's adventure. It feels like this game could have easily starred Link with less steps to overcoming the challenges presented, and a recent Ask the Developer from Nintendo confirmed my thoughts. This game began with Link as the protagonist. I wish the game was built from the ground up with Zelda at the helm rather than her becoming the solution to the problem they encountered with Link, which was if Link had access to a sword and shield, players wouldn't use echoes. The Legend of Zelda series has always felt like nostalgia remastered. You return to the world of Hyrule and its familiarity instantly eases you back into the rhythm of these games. It allows you to further focus on new mechanics and how those interactions introduce new ways to tackle combat and puzzles. This is the contract we all happily enter into the moment we press start. We know what to expect, and part of that expectation is this new layer of frosting that will change the flavor profile of the entire cake, even if the base remains the same. In that regard, this will be another recognizable and fun trip back to Hyrule. If you love The Legend of Zelda, I can't imagine walking away from this entry disappointed. Navigating a familiar space through a new pair of eyes will always make for an interesting concept. I just wish they would have taken this chance they themselves created to deliver us a version of this age-old adventure we've never seen before. Like it if you liked it, subscribe if you loved it, and tune into the Camp Koji podcast every Monday. Peace.